So when you make a product, the product should have good value for the customer. It should give them what they need for the most or fewest dollars that they want to spend. And from a profit-making standpoint, you should be able to give that value to the customer with the best margin. Everybody wins if the customer gets what they want and you get the margin that you want. If you focus too much on increasing margin by cutting cost and you forget about what the customer wants, then you start making products that suck. And I think that's where most infotainment systems are today. The automotive industry needs to understand that they can't make consumer electronics better than consumer electronics manufacturers. This phone that I'm using to film this right now is extremely ergonomic. It's really well thought out. It's really well designed. There's no car system that's going to do better than what this phone can do. And the same is true for whatever phone you have. They just need to start understanding that and working with simpler. The more complexity you add, then actually the worse it gets for the consumer. If it has a bunch of complexity, then they don't use half the functionality and you just added a bunch of cost to the product that nobody wants. You should strip it down to the bare minimum. And frankly, you can follow the 80-20 rule. If you get 80% of what people want, then you're going to have the remainder 20% that bitch about it and don't care. But it doesn't matter because you've addressed most of the market, and that's when you really achieved a great product. You don't need to please everybody. You never can. So my truck has a very simple interface. There is no infotainment system per se. I actually prefer this. There's buttons. Here's the power button. That's the volume. The tuning isn't all that straightforward, but it's functional. The one thing I don't like about this head unit here is that I can connect via Bluetooth to talk on the phone for hands-free, which is awesome. But I can't stream live music. I can't stream Pandora or any of my music from my phone via Bluetooth. It won't let me do that. It will only let me do the hands-free. The other irritating thing is if I hook up my phone via this USB cable, it will automatically try to play whatever's on my iPhone playlist, regardless of whether I asked it to do that or not, which is super irritating. And it keeps trying. It doesn't stop. It keeps trying. So when I put it in there, I'll say cancel, and it says cannot connect to USB device, and then it tries again. That's really irritating. It's especially irritating when I'm trying to plug in the phone to charge, as maybe on a road trip, I will be doing both, GPS and maybe playing Pandora or something like that, and I want to keep the phone charged. And I'm not asking it to play my iPhone playlist, I'm asking it to play Pandora, but it keeps saying, no, let me try to play your iPhone playlist for you. It's so irritating. GM, no thanks. Don't try to think for me. Just give me the buttons to push and I will figure it out from there. Thanks. So this is my wife's GMC Acadia. And this has a touchscreen function in it where you can do all of the information for like your trip computer, your range, your mileage and everything. It's all right here. And these again are these touch sensitive buttons that aren't mechanical. They're touch sensitive. They're either touch like pressure or temperature sensitive. I'm not sure which, but they're finicky and you can't touch them with a glove. They don't function if you are wearing a glove. Some funny things about this car. The rear windshield wiper is down here. So when you're trying to look in your rearview mirror, you got to put your finger all the way down there to get that working. The DVD plays in here, and then it's got a drop down, I don't know if you can see the roof there. There's a drop down DVD that comes down for the kids, and it skips all the time. It's terrible. It can't track even a brand new DVD function. It can't do it, and of course it doesn't do Blu-ray. This is a 2015 GMC Acadia, and it doesn't do Blu-ray. It's only 3 years out of date. So again, that's one of the reasons why I say, hey, automakers, you can't keep up with the technology. There's just no way. Don't try to put all this infotainment feature stuff in here. Just put in the adaptability, the USB, the Wi-Fi, and the Bluetooth, because that's the stuff that's likely going to stay constant, at least for the next 5 to 10 years, or at least the remaining useful life of the vehicle. And as long as you have that, then you can stay abreast of the new technology. The new technology can communicate with the car rather than the other way around. One last thing that's really irritating about this car, this hazard button, it's not a mechanical button, it's a touch button, and it's really easy to brush it. And for whatever reason, this one is super sensitive. It just takes a tiny touch. Now, see, look, I turned it on really easy. See, it's going over here. I turned it on really easy. I can't turn it off. Oh, finally. So, it's just, this whole thing is super finicky. It's really irritating, and I don't understand why it has to be like this. That was one of the biggest drawbacks. We bought this car, and we were like, this car is really nice. We're really happy with it, except for this. The Cadillac Q, or the Cadillac user experience. So this is my Cadillac ATS, and this has, again, a touch screen. It syncs with my phone relatively well, such that if I had Pandora playing on the phone last time I was in the car, as long as I haven't shut down that window, when I come back in here, it'll automatically queue it up and start playing it, which is pretty nice. Unlike my truck, this will play music. It'll stream music through here from the phone via Pandora or any other streaming service. It'll stream YouTube audio if I've got it on the phone, and it will also answer the call for me, so I can do hands-free. My truck won't do hands-free and streaming audio at the same time, but this car will, which is nice. These touch functions are finicky, just like the GMC. I found with one thing on the audio for the volume that at first I was really frustrated with it, because I would touch this button and it just wouldn't move. And then I found out that you have to put your finger on it and hold it, and then finally it starts to go. So that's kind of irritating, because it doesn't always pick up. See, look at that. It doesn't always pick up. It doesn't know I'm trying to do it. It's just, really? Like, what? Turn down. I have to sometimes just give up and use what's on the steering wheel to make it go down, and it'll finally work that way. One kind of cool thing I found out was this touch thing is functional. I didn't even know that. And there's like a hidden, like, secret compartment in there. I guess you could, you know, put all kinds of cool stuff in there, but I don't really use it. Again, look at that. I'm touching this, trying to get it to close, and it won't close. Oh, finally, it closes. This touch sensitivity on these electronics is really bad. And I don't know why they have to make it so gimmicky. Like, why can't they just make it simple? Like, even if it has to be a mechanical button, I don't know what they're worried about. Are they worried about springs failing? Are they worried about longevity? Or is it just cheaper to do it this way? It's probably just cheaper to do it this way. Another issue is that my heat control is down here. So you see I'm turning up the fan speed, but you can see that it displays the fan speed up here. And if I want to select where the heat goes, it shows up here. So that's how I control the heat. Well, what happens if this screen goes out? It means my entire center console, all the controls for the car, are done right there. So it's a single point of failure. Please, guys, don't do that stuff. Just make the car adaptable to the things that are standards. And the things that are standards are Wi-Fi, USB, Bluetooth. Those won't change, at least not in the near term, at least on like at least a 5-year periodic interval. Whereas consumer electronics are going to constantly change, and this whole thing is going to be out of date in no time. It already is. I mean, this is a 2014 model. It's going to be out of date soon. So I've been kind of hard on GM vehicles because I own mostly GM vehicles, and I'm a fan of GM, obviously. I mean, look at this dash. I think this is the best example of a good infotainment system, right? This is from the 61 Impala, and all that is a tuner knob for AM and a volume knob. That's it. Look at the heater controls. You got fan, defrost, heat, and AC. That's it. And I think there's something to be said about that simplicity, because if you have too much complexity, then you don't have a good product anymore. You now can use a phone and hands-free, and you can bury that in there with Bluetooth and some connectivity on that, and maybe a couple extra buttons on the steering wheel, and that's it. Just keep it that simple. Maybe I've been unfair to GM, but it's not just GM, it's all of them. If you look at the Chrysler interfaces, they're pretty bad. What started a lot of this was the BMW iDrive. That was just a really terrible kind of knob thing. I test drove an Audi A4, and it was a little bit difficult to follow. The screen has 4 corners, and each of the 4 corners has a different function that changes depending on what submenu you're on. I mean, really, guys, this is the best you can come up with? You have to bury that much complexity in a menu? Why not just make it intuitive or something that everybody's familiar with? The iPhone interface is really simple. You got a home button and a bunch of apps. That's it. Windows interface is really simple. You've got the start menu at the bottom, which is everything that you need. They tried to get away from that, and then they came back to it because it was so good. So just stick with that kind of stuff. It doesn't mean you have to reinvent the wheel and do something new. You can do something different. Like I said, I've been picking on GM a little bit too much, and maybe I've been unfair. A friend of mine has a Ford Explorer, and the Ford My Touch, or whatever that is, pissed him off so much that he was willing to sell the car after only owning it for like 6 months. He was so irritated. And he found that there were no aftermarket options to replace the head unit. Otherwise, that's what he would have done. So it's going to get more and more that way, where the aftermarket's going to clear up and you won't be able to replace stuff because there's too much embedded functionality in that head unit. And Crutchfield's going to go out of business, I guess. Maybe not, I don't know. But, the days of custom car audio are getting more complicated now because you have all this extra stuff and the heater controls and the mobile phone device and then the apps and the DVD player and everything's all integrated in the head unit, and you just can't bury all that into a custom head unit for every car now. We'll see where that goes, but I think this much complexity is actually bad for the automakers because at the end of the day, they're not making a good product. They just need to make something that follows the consumer electronics industry. The irony is not lost on me that as I was doing this review of the different visual audio systems for cars, I was using my iPhone to record most of the videos. And I, for whatever reason, cannot get a lot of those to transfer over to my computer. So some of the footage that you're seeing on this video were shot with my iPhone. And what I'm shooting it with right now is my Canon T3i DSLR. That's what I shoot most of my videos with because it's really reliable. And it works a lot better than my phone, at least for video purposes. So I guess that's just another situation where a consumer electronics manufacturer is trying to make one device that does everything, just like an automaker is trying to make one device that does everything, and some things they're better at than others. At any rate, I think the main takeaway for the car infotainment system review is that automakers should stop trying to make their car do everything and should instead ride on the coattails of the consumer electronics industry, knowing that mobile devices are always going to be better at connectivity, at interfaces, at using Bluetooth and Wi-Fi and USB to its maximum potential. They're always going to do it better than a car maker can, and therefore the car maker should ride on the coattails of that progress. If you really enjoyed this review, thanks for watching. Please hit the like button and subscribe down below. I appreciate you watching, and I'm Davian Hill with Solve Fix Build. Thanks.